Greetings, fellow travelers, in this worldwide web of internet scanomany. It is I, Stewie Dark of Invisible Lid, here to bring you 3 things that pretty much irk me. They don't necessarily piss me off, and I don't really think I need to do a rant on them, although it kind of is a rant. These are 3 things that irk me. They all deal with Captain Crunch, Sesame Street, and the Munsters. Let us begin. But before we begin, remember Quisp? Quisp with crazy energy. Remember Quisp? You don't remember Quisp? So, Captain Crunch first began as a cereal in the United States in 1963 as Captain Crunch Cereal. Since then, Captain Crunch has been made in all kinds of countries across the world, including Mexico, where he is Captain Crunch. That sounded kind of French, dude. Captain Crunch, Captain Crunch. God dang, that sounds weird. Why are you being a racist? So I'm not a military man. I've never been in the military. I'm not militant-minded, so I don't really understand the ranks of when you're in the military. But you would think, and here's my irk, you would think that after 53 years, a captain would get promoted to something above captain. I don't know if that's admiral and then general or whatever, but he's still Captain Crunch. It doesn't make any sense to me. It kind of irks me. Okay, I understand why he couldn't be called General Crunch, because the opposing cereal company, General Mills, Captain Crunch is Quaker. So that would be kind of like referring to General Mills. So I can understand why Quaker wouldn't let him have, gone up to General Crunch, but not Admiral Crunch? Why hasn't he become Admiral Crunch? It doesn't make any sense. So then I think, let's try to think about this analytically. I've spent hours and hours, not literally, but at least 15 minutes or so, trying to think of why Captain Crunch is not an Admiral after all this time. 53 years, dude. There's only 2 reasons I can think of. One is you cannot, for the love of God, nature, science, have a second bowl of Captain Crunch. Because if you do, the roof of your mouth gets raw, and it hurts. It's so raw that you could go inside the roof of your mouth and peel off little strings of the top of your roof of your mouth. So you can't have a second bowl of cereal. So maybe it's possible that Captain Crunch hasn't been ranked up to Admiral because he hasn't figured out a recipe to make it so that the roof of your mouth doesn't get raw. See, it's irking me. You can tell it's irking me right now. The other reason, possibly, is because even though Captain Crunch has come out with a multitude of cereals over the years, Choco Crunch and Spaceman Crunch and Cinnamon Roll Crunch and all these different crunches, he hasn't brought back Vanilla Crunch, which is literally the best Captain Crunch ever made. It's basically like peanut butter crunch, but instead of peanut butter balls, they are vanilla balls. God dang, what are you talking about balls, dude? Just bear with me. Vanilla Crunch hasn't brought it back. Those are the only 2 reasons I can think that Captain Crunch has not been an Admiral. Somewhere on the internet, I bet you anything, there's a petition for Quaker to flippin' get off their arses. They made Choco Crunch. Dude, Vanilla Crunch, you already made it years ago. They made Cinnamon Jollifoot, Cinnamon Crunch, and Crunch Berries, and Oops, No Berries, and just millions of different versions of Captain Crunch, but no Vanilla Crunch. So, he hasn't figured out the recipe to make it so that you won't get the roof of your mouth raw and peeling strings of the roof of your mouth off, and he hasn't brought back Vanilla Crunch. It's the only reasons as far as my minute brain can figure out. God dang, you're an adult and you're talking about cereal. Well, some people take this serious. You know what I mean? So my second top that somewhat irks me, when I was a kid, I was a young kid in the early 70s and a teenager in the late 70s. And when I was a young kid, I used to watch a lot of shows and such, and I kind of grew up on Sesame Street, Electric Company, and Zoom. Even Zoom, if you remember Zoom. But especially Sesame Street, because of all the puppets, dude! It's just all these monsters and cool stuff, and it was great. It was a great way for a little kid to learn about ABCs and sharing and being nice and all these things that are important to learn when you're a kid. I wonder how politically correct Sesame Street has gotten over the years. Not that I watch Sesame Street, mind you, but I just wonder, Because I think of things like Oscar the Grouch. Oscar the Grouch was a grouchy monster who lived in a garbage can. He claims that the reason why he lived in a garbage can is because the rent was cheap. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But I wonder if people of today are interpreting it as like, yeah, I mean, he lived in garbage. He loved garbage. He couldn't really stand people. He was kind of misanthropic. And, you know, he lived in garbage, he loved garbage, and everything was garbage, and just people, and he's all grouchy and stuff. I wonder how politically correct, I haven't seen Sesame Street since I was a kid. I wonder how politically correct Sesame Street is now for today's youth. Or even if Sesame Street's on television. I don't know. But I wonder what they've done with Oscar the Grouch. You know, is he still grouchy? Is he still misanthropic? Or have they kind of like looked at him like, well, you have a problem with hoarding, and, you know, we think you need to get some therapy for that, and, you know, living in a garbage can, and you're kind of antisocial, meh, 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 meh. So I wonder if Oscar the Grouch even lives in a garbage can anymore and is able to enjoy garbage. Maybe he's not a hoarder. Maybe he just likes garbage, dude. I don't know. Another thing is Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster always used to eat tons of cookies. Even way back when, he still promoted healthy eating and vegetables and stuff. But he always had cookies, man! And he'd say there's a time for vegetables and there's a time for cookies. And time for cookies is right now! I mean, that's the way, you know, Cookie Monster was. But it seems like now he's eating less and less cookies. It doesn't make any sense. I wonder if it's this thing where it's like, well, we don't want to teach kids to eat too many cookies, you know, and they have to take care of themselves and such things like this. Oh, I love cookies. I know you love cookies, dude. How come they're like not giving you as many cookies? I don't know. I can't do Cookie Monster anymore. Cookie? I kind of sound like Grover. Well, dude, what is it with the cookie thing? How come you can't have a lot of cookies? I don't know. Cookie! I want my cookies. Give me my cookies. Dude, what the heck is going on with the cookies? Where's my cookies? Well, I gotta give you vegetables, dude. You know, vegetables are good for you. But, you know, I eat vegetables, but lots of cookies. Now you can only have, like, one cookie? Yeah, that sucks, man. I don't know, man. I just don't know. And then you have Bert and Ernie. So, when I was a kid, you had friends that were boys. And you used to play ball and play war and stuff like this. And it was the complete norm as a kid in the early 70s to put your arm around your pal. He's your pal. He's your best friend. It's like, oh man, that was a great ball game we went to. Yeah, that was cool. Hey, let's go hiking. All right, man. That was cool. That was the norm for that day. So we have these puppets, Bert and Ernie. They live together. They're roommates. They're buddies. They're pals. They're friends, man. Ernie sleeps in Ernie's bed. It has an E on it. Bert sleeps in Bert's bed. It has a B on it. Bert can be kind of cranky, you know, and Ernie, yeah, he puts up with them. But they're the best of pals. Well, for some reason, there's this thing that's going around like, well, Bert and Ernie, you know. Oh, yeah, Bert and Ernie, they're friends. It's like, okay, so people are interpreting their friendship, their innocent friendship, that they're gay. That Bert and Ernie are gay. Are you flippin' kidding me, dude? You're saying that Bert and Ernie are gay now? Man, nothing is sacred anymore in the world. Dude, first of all, they're best buddies and friends. And second of all, they're flippin' puppets, dude. They're puppets. They're not even real. They don't have organs. They don't have legs. They don't have a weenus. I don't recall an episode ever of Ernie going down on Bert. I'm sorry. Maybe I missed that one. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. Now listen, I'm totally cool. People are people first, dude. It doesn't, if you're heterosexual or gay or lesbian or transgendered or bi or, none of that stuff matters, man. We're people first, okay? That's all that matters. But if you're gonna tell me that Bert and Ernie are gay, dude, you need to go to therapy. They're just puppets. They don't even have weenuses. I can't believe what people are saying nowadays. So my final irk for the day is the little show called The Munsters that came out of the mid-60s. When I was a kid, as I mentioned, young kid, in the monster boom of the early 70s, you had a television. The television was connected to an antenna that was on the roof. And you had an antenna changer that would change the direction of the antenna so that you could get the local networks, the local PBS station, local stations, and whatnot. You had about 13 channels. On these channels, you had all these movies, you had tons of sports stuff, you had all the TV shows you could ever see of the time: Get Smart, Star Trek, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Lucy, The Munsters, The Addams Family. The list goes on and on and on. You had all the PBS stuff you wanted to see, all the local stuff, tons of television, and it was free. This is a separate irk. It was free. Unlike today, where some people pay $100+ for 500 channels of oh, there's some, no, it's an ad. Reality television, reality television, reality television, reality television. Where's the art? Well, you're paying for it anyways. I digress. So we got this show called The Munsters. The Munsters, that was a great show. I prefer Addams Family a little bit more, mainly because of Morticia Addams, played by Carolyn Jones. Dude, it doesn't get any sexier than Carolyn Jones playing Morticia Addams. I mean, remember, like, Gomez would, she'd speak French, and he'd say, "Oh, Tish, that's French," and kiss her all the way up the arm, and she'd be like, "Later, Gomez." It's like, later? What are they going to do? Well, you know what they're doing. That didn't happen on Lucy. My gosh. So The Munsters, what do you got? You got this Frankenstein-like creature who was basically built up of body parts from different corpses, and then the Dr. Frankenstein-like character at some point, with herbs and great electricity, created Herman Munster, an undead dude who became alive. He's alive. Then you have Grandpa Munster, the father to Lily Munster. At some point, Grandpa Munster was a human, and him and his wife had a baby, Lily Munster. Well, years later, he got obviously bitten by an undead, blood-sucking vampire and turned into a vampire. Some years after that, when she was like 30-something, for some reason, Lily Munster also befell upon the same situation, where some vampire, hopefully not her father, that's incest, dude, god dang, I don't want to think of that when I'm talking about the Munsters. Somehow, she becomes a vampire. So she, like her father, is an undead, blood-sucking vampire, incapable of having birth. She's undead, dude. She's undead. So, how did they come up with Marilyn Manson? God dang, dude. Well, that's where he got the name from. Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn Munster. Marilyn Manson. God, I'm not talking about him. Yeah. Marilyn Munster. Somehow they come up with Marilyn Munster years later. And then like 10 years after that, Eddie Munster, who's a werewolf, gets born. Okay, I'm trying to figure this out. As a kid, you totally buy it, because it's the Munsters, dude. The Munsters rock. They rock. As I said, not as good as Addams Family. So, I can't figure this stuff out. I mean, he's a werewolf, for crying out loud. How does a vampire chick and a Frankenstein monster have a werewolf? Let alone a hot human chick. Doesn't make any sense. She's undead. I keep saying that. I know, but it's still, she's undead and she can't have babies. So, here's the only thing that I could surmise. At some point in the relationship of Lily and Herman Munster, they wanted to have a child. But because she's undead and can't have babies, they went to the human adoption agency. Why did they adopt a human? I don't know. But just bear with me. So they adopted Marilyn and brought her into the family. She became Marilyn Munster, a gorgeous, hot Marilyn Monroe type character. She's human. She doesn't look like a monster. She's not a monster. Okay? Then like 10 years later or whatever, they go across the street knowing they made a slight error with adopting a human. Doesn't make any sense. And they adopt a werewolf kid, Eddie. And he becomes a part of the family too. Eddie Munster becomes the youngest person in the family of the Munsters. That's the only thing that you can... I keep going back to... He's a werewolf, dude! I mean, obviously, Eddie Munster's real parents were werewolves. Then they had a baby, named him Eddie, and he was a werewolf. And Marilyn had human parents. That's the only thing that I can think of. Because, again, how do you take an undead dude that's alive? He's alive. He can actually cheat on her, which is not cool. But theoretically speaking, he could, go and have sex with a human and have a baby. But not with an undead chick, dude. It's just not possible. Nowhere, I believe, I dig horror movies and science fiction and all that stuff. I've never seen a movie where a vampire chick who's an undead, I keep saying that, gives birth. It just doesn't happen. So that's the human scan, and then the scan of the werewolf dude. It's the only explanation for the Munsters. Sorry it took me so long to say that, but it really irks me. Maybe it doesn't irk you, but it totally irks me. At least today, and a couple of days ago when I was thinking about it. Like, how is it that a vampire chick, okay, you're repeating yourself, and a Frankenstein monster can have a werewolf kid and a hot chick? It doesn't make any sense. So, in conclusion, the Munsters adopted. There you go. Finished. I think I finished with it. I think I'm done. I think I got it. I think that's it. That's the only answer. I don't know. Why is it like that? Why did they do that? He's a werewolf. It's impossible. You know what I mean?